Awesome. Okay, so we'll jump into it. Okay, so I have everyone muted at the moment just so that we can kind of run through things um, nice and coherently. And what we'll do is we'll actually, if you have any questions throughout, just put them in the chat. And if there aren't too many by the end, I'll go through and answer those questions. If there are heaps of questions at the end, then then what we'll do is I'll answer those questions after, and I'll email the answers out to you. Cool. This session is being recorded, so if you if you missed today's session, or if you have to leave early, or if you have staff who couldn't make it, which is highly likely, then we'll eventually upload that somewhere, and you can kind of watch it as many times as you want in your own time. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to take you through um, a journey through Client Voices, trying to cover all aspects of it. So, trying to cover all aspects, starting from kind of creating a client record all the way to closing it. And then somewhere in between there, we'll have maybe a 10-minute break. And I think we'll do that after I've shown you how to close a client case. Cool, let's get started. Right. Cool. Okay, so here's your login screen. You'll have a link to pilot.clientvoices.co.nz. This will eventually just be clientvoices.co.nz. It's just while they're migrating people across, we can't shut down the old one, or at least remove that clientvoices.co.nz URL. When you jump on here for the first time, you ask for an email and a password. If you haven't already, and you probably have, if you haven't already activated your account from Client Voices 1, you'll need to click this link here that says having trouble signing in. Click here to use your old Client Voices login details to sign in and set up your account. When you click here, it takes you to this page here where you'll enter your old username and your old password. And then when you click next, it'll ask you for an email address. So in this version of Client Voices, everyone has to have their own email address that they log in with. And that's because we have higher login standards than the previous one. And then when you enter your email address, you'll be sent an email asking you to set up a password. If you don't receive that email, make sure you check your junk folder or your spam folder. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to log in today as a manager called Michelle, and you all have hopefully received these same login details. This logs me into the demo service. Everyone is allowed in the demo service to have a look and try things out without having an impact on your own stuff. Cool. Go to the dashboard. All right. So when you log in, you'll first be taken to your dashboard. I'll give you an overview of this page. So here we have the navigation menu at the top. Dashboard will take you to this page always. Clients will take you to your client list. Staff will take you to your staff list if you're a manager. If you're not a manager, you won't see any staff information. The reports will take you to your reporting page. That's also a manager setting. Click on no-shows to log a no-show, and click on community education to log a community education event. We'll go through all of these in detail, so don't worry about that too much at the moment. And everyone will have their first name here. It's a context menu, so when you hold your cursor over your name, this little menu pops up. You have this link which takes you to your budgeting service. So if you want to change the name of your service or the contact details about your service, it's very basic information. Go through there. Click here to access our support website. Clicking My Profile will take you to a page where you can actually change your email address and your name, your phone number. that sort of thing, and even your password. And signing out obviously signs you out. What you'll also notice down here is a support button. Clicking here, you'll see there are two things that you can do in here. The first is that you can search through our support content. There are over 100 articles covering as much as we can think of that you would answer, that you would ask, but obviously more will be added later. If you have a question, let's say about the budget worksheet, just type it in here, press enter, and it will offer all of these articles. If you click on one, it shows you the article right here. You can scroll down and read that. If you need to, if you can't see this very well, you can actually click this button here and it will open in your browser, so in a new web page, full screen. The other thing you can do from here is if your question isn't answered by these support articles, click the submit a help ticket button, and that will allow you to submit a help ticket. That's really helpful for if you have like a feature request, or if you have noticed a bug, or if you just can't find the answer to the question. If this comes through to me in a way that I can have an overview of the kinds of things that people ask about and the features that people are requesting, and it really helps us prioritize what we develop next. Because if no one's asking for a feature, then it's going to be low on the priority. But if heaps of people are, then that's going to be easy for us to prioritize it. Cool. Next thing is this inactive open client cases kind of box. Basically, you will have seen this already. The idea is that you shouldn't have cases that are left open indefinitely if the person hasn't come back and maybe for some reason it's just kind of fallen through the cracks. This gives you visibility of all the cases that have been left open for over 2 months and haven't been touched. What we're noticing is that for the migrated information, it doesn't necessarily do a good job of marking activity that was done in the previous client voices. And so you might find that there are some clients in here that you've been working with all along. If that's the case, maybe just jump into their account and you could even put in a note there just to mark action, and that will just remove it. The other thing is that you can just click the X to dismiss it. It does suggest that you close the case. That's optional, it's just a suggestion. You know what the best thing is to do for your cases. But if you do want to close the case, you can just click on this button here and it'll take you through that process. The next thing down is the active clients. So active clients and client voices are clients with a currently open case. If you have a client who hasn't had a case open yet, or who has a closed case, they won't appear in this list, and they appear in the order of most recently created. You can scroll through this, just through the pages, and you can add a new client, or you can click the View All button, which actually takes you to the same page as this client button at the top here. Then, if you're a manager, you'll also see a staff section, which does the same thing. It shows you a list of all your staff, and you can access all the staff records from here. If you're not a manager, then you won't see this section. Cool. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll now jump into an existing client record. What I want to show you first, before we start creating a client, is what an actual client record looks like when it's populated with information, sessions, and budgeting information. Cool. Okay, so we'll have a look at this. We'll have an overview of this page before we jump into that client record. This is the client list page. When you jump on here, it automatically filters the list by only active clients. The reason we do this is because we initially had it showing all clients, but it became a real problem having to rummage through all of your inactive cases to find your active clients. So you'll see here it's filtered by active. If you want, you can change that to inactive, and you'll see that inactive clients have this label. And if you want to choose to show everyone, you can do that too. So this is all of your clients, active and inactive. You'll notice also that you've got the name of the client, who the financial mentor that the client is assigned to, and when the case was opened. And if there is no case, it'll just say no open case. If you're a manager, you'll also see this remove button. This deletes the client record. Let's see. Next, we'll have a look at the search. So I'll jump back into active and I'll search for a client. So just in the same way as the old system, when you do a search, you don't have to type out the whole name. If I want to look for Bill, I don't have to type his surname. If I want to look for Anita, I just have to type Ani and it'll come up with Anita. What you can also do is you can filter this list by the financial mentors that the client is assigned to. So if you click on this here, the demo service has heaps. What we've noticed is that that both active and inactive staff members are showing in this list. That bug has been solved. It just hasn't been rolled out yet. So within the next day or so, you'll see that your list of financial mentors will have reduced to only those that are currently working. Cool, and then we've got extra filters. So we've got this more filters button, and it means that you can filter this client list by ethnicity, gender, and age range. So all you need to do is click on here, gives you your ethnicities. We'll talk about these a little bit more later. But let's just, for example, choose New Zealand European, female, and we'll choose 36 to 45. Apply, and we have one client that matches, I guess, this profile. You can remove one of these at a time just by clicking the X, or you can clear the entire filter. And also you'll notice that it says, it always tells you how many records are showing. So showing 40 of 62 clients. From that, we can assume that 40 of all 62 clients are active. The other 22 are inactive clients. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into an existing client. My favorite client is Godzilla, very loyal client. All right, so here we have Godzilla's budgeting page, so the case page. Here we can see Godzilla's name. We have 3 tabs here, which I'll take you through. Right now we're on the cases tab, and that will show us a list of Godzilla's cases. Here we've got case 2, and the data was opened. A label to show that it's open, and that it's an ongoing case. Here we have something new that wasn't in the previous version, sessions. So you'll always see session 3 is the most recent session, and session 1 is the first session. So you've always got the session number here, the date the session took place, whether the client check-in for that session was completed, and the session value. So this is, I guess, the session amount that will count toward your MSD accountability measures. And then optionally, you can also type in how long your session was. You'll notice that this says case 2, which implies that there is a case 1. You can't see case 1 here, but if you click on this view older cases button here, then that will take you to case 1. So this was a one-off case with no mentoring sessions. Right, so I'll just get more into 2D. Right, apologies for that. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so this is the case one. This is the original case. If you want to hide it, click the hide older cases button. Okay, so next I'll show you the client case notes. Here we have some that are migrated from the previous one. They get given a label. To add a new note, just click add new note. Now the difference between this one and the one in the old client voices is that these notes are actually formatable. You can add styling like bolding, italics, underlines, that kind of thing. So type this is a note, and you can bold it, etc. You can do strike through, numbered lists, and bullet points. What you can also do is you can change the date that this note is created. So it defaults to today's date, but sometimes what happens is you might write all of your notes on a piece of paper on day one and then enter them into Client Voices on day two. So let's say we saw the client yesterday, and then we'll just click that this note was taken on the 16th, and then click Save Note. So the note will always show when the note was created, obviously the note itself, and who created the note. If you want to edit the note, click Edit. What you'll also notice is that there's this message saying, notes must not include any irrelevant sensitive information, only record the minimum amount of sensitive information as possible relevant to the case. This is not a rule, it's basically good privacy advice. Don't include things that you don't need for the case, but at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you what you think is important to write in here. If you want to delete a note, just click the delete button. Awesome. Okay, so if you jump over to here where it says files, so this is where you upload client files. Some of you have been asking where your client files are. Basically what's happened is there are technical kind of complexities when it comes to migrating the actual files from Client Voices 1 to Client Voices 2. We've migrated services and phases, but that's not possible with all the files. There's just they're too big, and so what we had to do is we had to migrate them all once everyone is in Client Voices. So you'll see those appear sometime next week, but you can still upload files now. What you need to do is click the Upload New File button, click Choose Files, and then just grab the file that you need, and you'll see it appear here. What you can also do is if you accidentally grabbed the wrong file, or if you've not grabbed enough files, let's say I wanted to get 2, you can click the Replace Files button, whoops, and you can grab more than one at a time, open, and then you click Save. Basically, what happens is when you upload these files, they scan for viruses, and then it'll come up with a message here saying it was successfully uploaded. Right, we'll go back to the cases, and I will show you what the session space looks like. So we'll jump into the latest session, and what you'll notice here is that there's a notice saying this session was created 28 days ago. Please create a new session if applicable. The reason for this is that ideally, when your client comes in and you start working with them, there should be no reason that you're updating a previous session's budget worksheet. What you need to do is create a new budget worksheet or a new session. So it asks you to click the new session button. If you're in here maybe doing after session work, it's fine to just click edit and make changes according to, I guess, whatever notes the client gave you. So here, I'll give you a basic overview of this page, and we'll have a look at it in detail when we create a new client. So at the top, we've got the session header, which has the name of the case 2, when it's open, and that it's open, and that it's ongoing. The case goal always appears here. we have a new section called Reasons for Hardship, which basically there's this matrix of chosen reasons why people fall into hardship. The idea behind this is to build a picture of what moved your client into hardship. And we'll have a look at that in a little bit more detail after. So this is session 3, today's date, the session value, and the session duration. Oops. And here we've got the budget worksheet tab and the debt schedule tab. You can see we've got budget worksheet selected, and so we've got your income items here and your expense items here. And then at the very bottom, we've got the total. If we go to the top and have a look at the debt schedule, we can see that there's one debt in here. But if you have more than one debt, you can actually just grab it by these 8 dots and drag it around. So if you have, say, 5 debts, you can drag them around and change the order of things. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll go to the client list and we'll create a new client. So we'll click on the Add Client button here. And what this gives you is your client intake form. So it's much like the old one, missing some things and some things added. So we'll start creating our client. I'm going to create Bruce Willis because I guess his career is semi-over and he needs to pay bills. And we'll say he's born on the 1st of January, 1960 something. His ethnicity, today we'll just say he's Maori. You'll notice that this ethnicity list is reduced heaps from the old one. We no longer have that massive list of every single ethnicity ever conceived of. So we'll just choose Maori. For the iwi list, what we noticed in the old version of Client Voices is the iwi list wasn't really complete. There were a lot of you would come to me and say, my client's iwi is not represented in this list, and we didn't really have a way of adding them. We wanted to have a more exhaustive list this time, but it turns out it's not possible to have an exhaustive list of iwi. So what we've done is we've left it kind of a free text, but it makes suggestions for you. So let's say our client is from Mua-Upoko. As you type, it just kind of reduces down to Mua-Upoko. We can click it to select it. Otherwise, a common one missed out is Tainui. A lot of people claim the iwi is Tainui, but it's not on the iwi list and it's not considered an iwi by the government, I guess. So we can type Tainui and it becomes an iwi for us. The referral point, so this is where your client was referred from. We'll say that this client was self-referred. He's male. His phone number is 1234567. Cool. And his email address. And address, we'll leave the address blank, but we'll say that he's from Wellington, or at least he's in Wellington, because that's the one that's offered. Dependent children under 18, I don't know, he's probably got heaps, but we'll say 3. And then we have this client number field. The idea behind this one is we don't populate it, but if you in your service assign a number to your clients, then you can put it in here. We'll leave it blank for now. In addition to this form is the ability to add a partner. Just click this Add Partner button and it opens up this extra form. None of these details are required, so you can enter as much or as little as you want. Probably good advice is to add at least the name and one piece of contact information so you can contact the person. We'll say, who should we put in here? Let's pair up Bruce Willis with Will Smith. And we'll put an email address in here. Awesome. If you want to remove it, just click this remove partner button. And the last part is the financial mentor that your client is assigned to. By default, it'll put your name in here. If you're a manager or if you have the right financial mentor permissions, you'll be able to change who that's assigned to if you need to. If you have financial mentoring permissions which restricts you to only being able to see your own clients, you won't be able to change it. Click Save Client. Voila, we've got Bruce Willis. All right, so now we've got Bruce Willis as a client record in here. We see his name up here. We see his name as well up here with his partner's name, phone number, mobile number, and email address. They are always sitting at the top here for your convenience, so that you can contact your client when you need to. If you want to go back to that form we just completed, just click the View All Details button. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll go and create a client case for this person. If you're looking for this client right now in the client list, they'll appear as inactive because we haven't created a client case for him yet. So just click the New Client Case button. It always defaults to today's date, but you can change that to previous dates. The goal for this case, so it's required to enter a goal for this case. To pay off debts is probably not a good goal, so it's probably not a good example there, but we'll put it in anyway because it's short. Engagement level, whether it's ongoing or one-off. He was self-referred, so we think he's going to be ongoing. Does the client have an obligation from a third party to be here? This is a new field, and the purpose of this field is kind of it's to introduce a measure of success. Generally speaking, when a client has been referred from a third party out of a third party's obligation or an obligation to them, they're less likely to be engaged in your service and probably just want to be there to get their budget done or something like that. So if that's the case, click yes. If not, click no. If you have, I guess the measure of success comes in when you have clicked yes, and you probably expect this person to just be one-off or only come for maybe 1 or 2 sessions. If you have clicked yes, but this person ends up coming multiple times, we think that's a measure of success. You've been able to take someone who isn't interested in doing budgeting or financial mentoring and has engaged in the process because basically they're sold on the value of your work. Then we have funding groups. So funding groups are different for each service. By default, there are no funding groups. If you had funding groups in the old version, they have migrated across. But yeah, basically funding groups are ways for you to segment your clients so that you can filter your reports based on those client groups. Here, we've got total money management as an example, BFC Plus. I guess the typical example is when you have MSD funding and you have a core MSD client base, and then you've got your BFC Plus if you get funded for that as well. You have to report on that separately. So you need to be able to separate them in the report. We'll leave these blank. Also, you can add more than one fund. You can add a client to more than one funding group, and you can actually use these funding groups for whatever you need. If you need to segment your clients in any way just for your reporting, this might be a useful way to do it. All right, we'll click Create Case. Now we have a case open today, and it's an ongoing case. What often happens is a client will kind of, for some reason, they'll show an interest in the service and you'll think that they're ongoing, but they might disappear after a couple of sessions and you might want to change them to a one-off. All you have to do is click this switch and it just switches them to one-off. Cool. Okay, so you'll see that there are no sessions here. So it says no mentoring sessions. But now we've got this new session button that's popped up. Click new session. And that takes us to the session page with the budgeting information. So we'll have a look at this in detail. We'll have a look at update reasons for hardship first. So basically we've got these 6 sections here. This is not an exhaustive list of reasons people wind up in hardship. They're just ones that we've put out there that we think are worth measuring. The idea behind this activity is you don't have to enter this information on your first session. You leave it blank until the client, when they're sharing their story, they basically unveil that maybe they've lost their job, which you'll probably find out in the first session. Maybe further down the track, if you're lucky or if you're good, you'll find out that they also have a gambling problem. Maybe they can't get work because they have health issues, that sort of thing. This is an activity to be completed over the period of the whole client case, not within a single session. Let's see. So we've got session 1. I'll show you how to change these. So every session defaults to a value of 1 session, and so it adds 1 session count to your MSD accountability measures. But you can change that if your session was super short or super long. Let's say your session was 2 hours long and you feel that it should be a value of 2, you can actually increase the value of that session. Optionally, you can also put in the length that the session took. Ideally, this is the length of the actual face-to-face session, so I guess what this represents, but use this how you need to. So it's in hours, so you can put in, say, 2 hours. That was a 2-hour long session. And what you can also do is change the date of the session. Like I said before, if you're the kind of financial mentor who likes to write everything down on a piece of paper and key it in later, you might need to just change the dates. And we'll click save. And we'll see the session date has changed to yesterday. The session value is now 2 and it's 2 hours long. Here we've got the budget worksheet. So we'll go through the income section. What you will have noticed is that on the client intake form, once upon a time, I guess we would ask the question about the client's main source of income. We no longer ask that question. I guess what we now want to do is, instead of creating basic segments based on main source of income, we want to get a realistic picture of client income. So what you'll be able to do is, here you've got this list of income types. You'll be able to kind of build a profile of your client's income. So let's say, for example, Bruce Willis, casual, say Santa, or no, we'll say mall Santa. Cool. This is his casual job as a mall Santa. Like I said, he's a bit washed up, needs to pay the bills. He gets $200 a week. I guess technically mall Santa is seasonal work, so you'll probably want to average this across the year. Let's say he also gets, he's got a part-time job, and we'll say he's an extra. He doesn't get those good roles anymore. And for that, he gets paid $1,200 every week. So you can change these to be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or yearly. And it always shows the weekly subtotal, unless at the bottom, you can actually change the subtotal to be fortnightly or monthly. If you want to add another income item, just click add income item. You might want to say that his partner, Will Smith, Will's salary earns, say, $1,400 a week. So a bit of a drop in income since the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but not doing too bad. So we can see that this this duo, they get $2,800 per week. If you want to delete, an income item, just click the rubbish bin here. When you create a brand new budget, it populates it with what was once the short template or the small template and the old version of Client Voices, and it just zeroes it all out. So you've got groceries, rent, board, all of that. You can change these details on the top. So you can see groceries general. How about we'll change personal cash, because not everyone has personal cash. Let's call this one, I don't know. We'll say this is groceries, other, just for the extra groceries. What Client Voices does is it tries to suggest these options here. And these options are based on, I guess, your long template or your full template in the old Client Voices. It's good to choose these because I guess when we get to the point of being able to, I guess, run reports based on your clients' expenses, it would be really ideal for you to be able to say, clients generally spend this much on groceries and this much on rent and board. It makes it easier if you don't have 10 different versions of groceries in your client data. So back to it. So you can change the name of it. You can add the amount. Say this is $200 every week. Rent and board, that's maybe $500 every week, and then we've got internet tends to be about $100 every month. And you can see all the subtotals are here. You can add a single expense item just by clicking add an expense item. And we'll call this one, let's see what comes up. Oops. Let's say haircuts. Every year, get 2 haircuts a year. So that's probably about, go to Just Cuts, maybe $40 a year, 40, 60, we'll say $60 a year. If we want to add more than one expense, like in the old version where you used to be able to add the full template, click add multiple expenses, and you get this list of all of the expenses that we have in Client Voices. One problem that we had in the old one was that if you added the full template, you would have to then go back and delete all the ones that you didn't use. In this one, you actually can just click this to check the ones that you want. Appliance rental, child support, court payments. You can choose whether or not to actually put in the information here. So we'll say appliance rental. I don't know actually how much appliance rental is. I'll say $50 a fortnight. So you can add the information here, or you can just leave it for later. You can see that there are these grayed ones. That's because these ones have already been added to your budget. You can delete them from your budget and then re-add them again later, but they're added automatically. Just click confirm to add these new items, and you can see those 3 items appeared here, and we'll see appliance rental is $50. So it's a much smoother way of doing the full template. Cool, and now we've got total expenses of $749, and this client is in a pretty good surplus of $2,050 every week. That's basically all there is to the budget worksheet. I should also point out that you can, in your expense items, you can type anything you want. Let's say, well, what do people spend money on? Lollies, that's a big expense. $10 every week. So you can put anything you need in there. Now we'll have a look at the debt schedule. Here we've got an empty debt schedule. The total debt is 0 and the total arrears is 0. We'll click add new debt item and it will open up this full form here. The first thing you need to do is say who that money is owed to. We'll choose Bank of New Zealand as just because it's the default here. And when you start typing, it starts offering you these different creditors. We originally had a super exhaustive list of different creditors in this list, and it became really, really problematic. So what we've done is we've taken the 400 most frequent creditors from entered into the old version of Client Voices from the past 2 years, and we've used that to inform this list here. So we've got 400 that get offered to you. All of the major banks are there, all of the telcos are there, and utilities. Finance companies, because there are so many finance companies, that list isn't exhaustive, but we've got the most frequently headed ones here. You can type whatever you want, like some of the other fields we've got, but it's best if it offers you BNZ, Bank of New Zealand, it's best to choose what's offered so that when you run reports, you don't have 400 different versions of Bank of New Zealand, BNZ, Bank of NZ. The description, so we'll say this is basically what the loan is for. We'll say this is like a personal loan for a holiday. Bruce Willis and Will Smith went on holiday together, and they borrowed money to do that. They borrowed $1,000, that's their total debt. I mean, that's the amount that they owe. We'll say $200 of that is in arrears, a repayment. Currently, they're paying $20 every week, which is a little bit stingy considering their surplus. The type of creditor is, say, banks. So this type of creditor list has been updated to include things that weren't in there before. We'll choose bank, finance company, or other consumer lender. And then when you choose this option, it comes up with a sub-menu here, which is bank, credit union, sales, all that sort of thing. We'll choose bank because BNZ's obviously a bank. And when you choose this option, it comes up with a loan type menu field. This is a personal loan, so we'll click personal loan. But now what you can do is, as a manager, you should be able to run reports based on loan types, which is something that you weren't able to do in the previous one. You can now see, for example, the percentage of debt to high cost loans. All right, the next one is whether the loan is secured. We'll say yes. These two are carried over from the previous version of Client Voices. They are optional, there for your convenience. It's just, for example, if you have a customer reference number for your client with BNZ, then you'll put it in here, and then BNZ's phone number. Is the client with debt collection? We'll say no. There are kind of three, this is maybe a confusing question because there are three different types of debt collection. There's the type where, let's say Bank of New Zealand has referred this client to the debt collection team within BNZ, which is then different from actually being referred to a debt collection agency. But I think if it's under debt collection, whether it's within BNZ or to a debt collection agency, you should tick yes. But if the debt has been sold to a debt collection agency, then you should make the debt collection agency's name the creditor name because they are now the new creditor. And maybe you can say in here that it's for a BNZ debt. An optional field here is for interest rate. Basically, with the law changes with the CCCFA, everyone's kind of interested to see how interest rates are being used, and so that's an optional field for you if you want to keep an eye on that. And then your debts, you can add debt notes. You can add one debt note per session. So we'll put in this is a debt note. And once again, we've got all these styling options, but it's just a debt note, so we won't click save. And we've got our debt. So on the top here, we've got the creditor, Bank of New Zealand. We can change that here if we accidentally chose the wrong one. You can change the description for the debt. You can see that the debt is with debt collection agency because it's got the DC thing here, which means debt collection. And you've got a lock here for secured debt. If these symbols aren't here, it means that it's not with debt collection or it's not secured. You can see that the debt is $1,000, $2,000 is in arrears, and $20 a week in repayments. If you want to go back to that form, just click more, and it will take you back. You can change all of these details on top though. Like I said before, if you've got multiple debts, you can drag these around. It's really fun to do. You should try it. And you've got the total debt at the bottom, which is $1,000 and arrears of $200. Now, when we're looking at the concept of debt presenting, the way we're doing it at the moment is if you have, I guess the presenting debt is the amount that you enter into into the first session that the debt appears. So we're in session 1. You can change the amount of debt over time so that you can predict that the client has been paying off the debt over time. So you can reduce this amount in future sessions. But when we're running our reports or when we're closing our case and we want to reflect on the amount paid off versus the presenting debt, it's always the amount that the debt appears as in the first session that the debt appears. If we add the debt in session 2, then that will be the presenting debt. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of a confusing concept. Okay, so now we've got these 4 buttons here. These are kind of the last parts of this page. If you need to, click delete a session. This is something that you should do sparingly. The only reason you should delete a session is if you've added a session accidentally. Export. This gives you an export budget PDF, a debt schedule PDF, and a cash flow Excel spreadsheet. What we are still developing is the export budget Excel spreadsheet. So you will be able to export your budget into an Excel spreadsheet. And this export cash flow, it's still in a beta phase like the previous one. We are working on being able to mark when the expense or income item starts and when it ends, so that you don't have to, so it doesn't go on forever, and so that when you produce it, it doesn't just plot it at its own sort of frequency. But at the moment, you can export it, and it just you just have to kind of arrange things so that they fit the reality. I think I pointed out before that you have the option of adding a client check-in per session. So if you click on client check-in, it will give you, I guess, the check-in as you know it. We'll say 9s because your client thinks that, I mean, it's the first session and they feel amazing about themselves, but they also feel amazing about the service you're delivering. We'll just leave these ones blank and we'll click save. And so that's done. Cool. And then the last one is the alternative budget. Actually, what I'll do, I'll show you this in a second, but what I will do is I'll go back to cases. So we've been working in session 1, which was created yesterday, for example, and we can see that the client check-in was completed. So you can see at this level that the client check-in for a session was completed. What we'll do, I'll actually change this to last week sometime. So we can pretend that session 1 was last week and we're jumping forward 1 week so that we can add a new session. The client is back in for their second appointment. We'll click new session. And we'll jump straight into the budget worksheet as we entered last time. But when we go back, what we'll see is it says session 2 now. What it's done is it's actually duplicated session 1 and placed it in session 2. So you'll make changes to the budget worksheet and debt schedule in session 2 today, but it won't make changes to what you completed in the previous one. The purpose of this is that it keeps a record of the client's financial journey, starting with the very first budget, what you knew about them at that time, and you're kind of progressing in time. Cool. So we'll jump in here, and I'll show you the add alternative budget. So the way this version of Client Voices is designed is that you have a main budget, which is kind of the general budget that you're working on over time. You're trying to improve your client's financial situation from your draft budget to a much more refined version of the budget. but I know in the old version, you could duplicate a budget and maybe use that as just to run a hypothetical scenario. Like, let's say, for example, you want to see what this client's life is like without their debt. We can add an alternative budget and we'll call it no debt as an example. So now what we've done is we've created an alternative budget kind of parallel to our main budget. This means that it's duplicated that budget. It's blue, so you know it's an alternative one. It's not the main budget. And you can make changes to this without affecting the main budget, right? So we can go to the debt schedule and let's say we want to show them that let's say zero debt, what their budget will look like with no debt. And obviously they have less expenses and their total will be improved. There are lots of reasons you would want to do an alternative budget. Maybe you just want to produce a budget for a creditor that doesn't include certain items, that kind of thing, or a really refined budget for another purpose. These are always saved. If you want to go back to your main budget, go back there. So you click on this drop-down box. So now it's that beautiful pink. So so we know we're in our main budget. If you want to go back to your alternative budget, just click on that drop-down box and choose no debt. There's no limit to the amount of alternative budgets that you can have, and you can update these for every session. All right, that's basically all there is to the client case. What we'll do is we'll now go and show you through, I'll take you through closing the case. So at this level, all you need to do is click close case. Defaults to today's date again. Was the client goal achieved? We'll say no, because maybe for session 3, they never turned up. We'll say client withdrew or hasn't returned. You can see their debt presenting was $1,000 based on that first session. We'll say $20 was paid off. And we'll click close case. Apparently you can't open and close a case on the same day, so we'll just choose tomorrow. Cool, that's done. Now you can see here that the case is closed and this new case button has popped up just so that you can create a new case. Like in the old one, you can't have more than one case at a time. All right, what we'll do now is because that's the most complex part and it's the majority of it. What we'll do is we'll take maybe a 10-minute break. So we'll pause the session for about 10 minutes. Let's say come back at 11:05, go to the Wharepaku, get a drink, and I'll see you then. Cool, it's 5 past 11, so we'll get started again. Looks like there are some really good questions in the chat at the moment. Keep them coming. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'll tell you the order. So we'll do the no-shows. Actually, we'll do community education first, then we'll do no-shows, staff, and then reports. It seems like a lot, but these parts are way smaller than the client space. So for community education, if you're running a community education event or a Money Mates, then just log it in here. At the moment, we can see in this table, we've got 10 courses that have been logged and delivered, the name of the course number, the date that the course was delivered. So that's going from the date of your first delivery to the date of your last delivery. If you have, say, 6 modules to cover in 6 different sessions, then you want to encompass that entire journey for those clients and the total number of sessions for that whole course. To add a new course, just click Add New. And you've got this basic form here, which is course name. We'll choose Money Mates because it works for our example. The course number is optional. Just type something in there. This is a Money Mates course. And a community education course is just any course that's not a Money Mates course. The start date will say it's every Thursday, going from yesterday to give it 6 weeks. So 23, go 6, go to, I think, the 20th of August. Because it's 6 different sessions, we'll say 6 sessions in total. The number of facilitators is 1, and the number of attendees, we'll just say 10 for now. If you have more than 1 facilitator, MSD allows you to multiply the number of sessions you have by the number of facilitators. So for example, this is a pretty big group. We need 2 facilitators, which means 6 becomes 12. Save session. Voila, we've got it at the top here. What we can also do is add attendees to the session. Attendees to the course. Go back into it by clicking on the name, and we'll see the information that we entered already. We can click the edit button to edit the session, edit the information. I've got sessions on the brain. And at the top, we've got attendees, so you can either add an existing client. This is someone who is already a client of yours, or at least has a client record, or add a new client who you have no record of. Add an existing one, just click here. We had Bruce Willis before. Just start typing his name and it suggests these names for you. Click Bruce Willis, and that's added easy as. We also like Godzilla. No course is good without Godzilla. Bam. And then you can add a new client. So instead of asking you to fill in an entire client intake form, we just ask these 4 fields: the first name, last name, phone number, and email address. So we'll call this person Graham. I don't know, Henderson is a word, is a name. Cool, Graham Henderson. Phone number, the same as everyone else's. And graham@example.com. So basically we've got the attendee's name and contact details so that you can get in touch with them, and click save, and they are added here. What it's done in the background is it's actually added Graham Henderson as a client to your service, but it's an inactive client and the client intake form is incomplete. So what we can do is we can, for example, click on Graham Henderson's name, and it will take us to the client intake form where we've got just that information that we entered. If this client wants to do face-to-face financial mentoring, we'll need to complete this intake form before we can deliver financial mentoring to them. That's quite easy. You can just click edit, and edit the form. And then click Update Client and start working with them as a new client. Otherwise, Graham just sits in there as like a short client. What you can also do is when you add a new client, and this is the case for filling in the client intake form, Client Voices searches your client base to see if you already have a client with that name. So we already know that there's a Bruce Willis. If we try to add a new one, Bruce Willis, it'll give you this to say a client with this name already exists, and it'll give you their email address and phone number. The reason it shows the email address and phone number is so that you can know that this is not just a client who shares a name with your client. This is indeed the same person. You can choose to add this existing client to the attendee list, or you can ignore this and just continue filling in the information and click Save. Cool, so that's everything to do with the MoneyMates space. Now we'll have a look at no-shows. This particular section is not quite complete yet. It's basically built to enable you to fulfill MSD reporting requirements if you have your MSD funding, so that you can get a total number of no-shows and no-show sessions. Here we can see that there are 10 no-shows showing. This is basically 10 no-shows logged. You can filter this list by staff, so you can see how many no-shows each staff member has, just for your convenience. And adding a no-show, it's a very short form. Just the first name, choose Tim because it's already in there. What else? We've got Tim Morrison, so Tim Weirdo Morrison didn't come to his appointment today, so this is the date of the appointment, and click Save. So now you can see Tim Morrison at the top, logged by Michelle, who is me today. And in the back end, it adds a half session to your total session count. You can click Delete to delete it if you need to. Now, the plan for this whole section is that no-shows becomes the appointment space. So instead of logging no-shows, you're logging appointments, because you've logged when your client has come in and booked an appointment. And let's say they're due here for today. When the day arrives for their appointment, you'll be asked, has this client arrived? If you say yes, it'll take you to their budgeting space so that you can start the session with them. If you say no, it will log a no-show. And then in the client space, so let's say we have a client who's appeared, who's not shown more than, let's say, 3 times. Each time a client doesn't appear for their session, instead of saying session 8, it'll say no show. And so you'll see visually on top here how often your client doesn't show you. So you'll see their no-show habits. That's the next big thing coming. But in the meantime, you can at least get your no-show count. And finally, we've got, well, not finally, semi-finally, we've got staff. So these next 2 parts are more specific to managers. Only managers can actually see staff accounts. So here we have a list of all of our active staff. It defaults to active, like the client list. If you want to see your staff that have been deactivated, just choose inactive and you'll see this big long list. Otherwise, you've got active. You can see the name of the staff member and their email address. This is really good for if you want to get in touch with your staff member easily. That's why we have it on top. Otherwise, if you click on, say, Christian Henry as a staff member, you can see Christian's sign-in details. That's his email address, first name, last name, phone number, email address. To change the email address, just click Change Email Address, and it will ask you to enter the email address and confirm it here, so re-enter it. When you click confirm, what will happen is an email will be sent to the staff member just to validate that, that email address exists. They just have to click that link and there to say, yes, this is the correct email, and then the email address will change on the account. Cool, so I'll cancel that. If you, let's see, somehow we've ended up in edit. So yeah, so if you want to edit the details, you just have to click this edit button here, edit, change the details. Optionally, we have emergency contact information. That's just kind of more HR type stuff. And then down here, we've got the permissions, and I'll explain them to you as best I can. You can see there are kind of 5 permissions in total, but there are 3 main permission levels just to simplify it. These ones down here are mostly for your staff who don't do financial mentoring and aren't managers. Maybe you've hired them to do general admin stuff. You want them to be able to record client records, appointments, that kind of thing. So you've got these 2 permission settings here. This one gives that person viewing access to client records so that they can look at the list of clients and their contact information, but they can't actually edit it. This one here gives them the same, but they can also edit and create those client records. Next one up is financial mentoring. We've got 2 financial mentoring permissions. One is where you can mentor all assigned clients, so only those clients that are assigned to you specifically, or you can mentor all clients. This one here is to accommodate for the type of service where maybe you can't really afford to have one financial mentor assigned to a client, but instead the client goes to the next financial mentor in line. And then you've got the management permissions. The manager can see everything, they can create and edit everything. That's including client records and staff records. So we'll click cancel because we don't actually want to change any of this information, but if you do, just click the save button. If you want to deactivate this staff member, if you want to deactivate the staff member, just click the deactivate button. Click back to staff to go back to the staff list. And what we're going to do now is I'll show you how to add a staff member. So click add staff. First name, I'll just grab what's in here, Scooby Doo. Phone number, email address, we'll say scooby@example.com, and enter that into here as well. Okay, so it says double check that you've entered the email address correctly. We will send the account password instructions to it. So when I submit this form, Scooby-Doo will receive an email saying, welcome to Client Voices, click here to set up your password. So it's up to Scooby to set up their own password. Optionally, we can enter the emergency contact details. We'll leave that blank for now. Otherwise, we'll just say Scooby is a financial mentor who can only see and edit his own clients. Click save. Cool, user created successfully. And that's done. That's how you add a staff member. And now Scooby will receive that email just to invite him to set up a new password. Once he's done that, he's got access to Client Voices. He can create new clients, that kind of thing. We can then also assign clients to him. If he doesn't receive that email, just make sure that you check the junk mail folder or the spam folder. Okay, and I'm pretty sure finally, we've got the report section. So once again, only managers have access to reporting features. We have 2 kinds of reports. We've got an on-screen report and we've got a CSV export, which is the data export. where you start. Actually, I'll show you what they look like here. Here you can see we've run multiple on-screen reports, right? And down here, you can see we've run multiple CSV downloads. And you can view these reports here, and you can download these reports here. If you want to run a report, just set the start date, the end date. So we'll say we want to run a report for June, the 1st of June to 2020 to 30 June 2020. Let's go here, 30 June 2020. Okay, cool. So you can either click generate, which will create the on-screen report, or click export CSV, which will create a CSV export of all of that client data. What it does at the moment is it will automatically de-identify that data. So client names, phone numbers, email addresses, they won't come through. Staff email addresses and names, they also won't come through. This is basically the like a privacy precaution that's being taken. What we hope to do very soon in the future is make it possible for you to choose whether you want to export that data as being de-identified or not, because I guess there are cases where maybe you just want a list of clients and their email addresses so that you can communicate with them, and you should be able to do that. But that will be later. I'll show you the on-screen report. I won't generate a new one. I'll just show you what this one looks like, because it's for the same period anyway. So the on-screen report has 5 separate sections. We've got the client case section, demographics, debt breakdown, staff, and your MSD accountability measures. And we'll have a look at these ones. Just click the section header to open and close it. So here you've got a summary of all your client cases. You've got the number of financial mentoring sessions here, which is 19.5 for that month. The number of money match sessions, new cases, cases brought forward, the number of cases closed in this period, the number of ongoing, one-off, the number where you've checked that they are here out of an obligation to a third party, the number that are BFC Plus cases, and the number that are TMM cases. Just click that to close it. Next is demographic. This is the basic demographic breakdown of your clients. Age range, so now we've got percentages. For example, we've got for the age range 26 to 35, and in June you've got 12 clients who represent that age range, which makes up 21.82% of your total client base. Same with ethnic breakdown, you've got your percentages and your total record numbers. Gender breakdown, iwi breakdown. What's important to know is that if there's an iwi that you've never chosen, that it doesn't represent any of your clients, that iwi won't show in here. This report will only show those iwi that you actually have chosen, including the ones you entered, like Tainui, for example. And then where your client was referred from, so the percentage of your clients who were referred from these different areas, and the number of records, and city. So because this is the demo service, this list is super long. Yours is probably going to be pretty short. And the number of clients with dependents. So to explain this part, it's a little bit confusing. This measure here is the number of clients you have who don't have any dependents under the age of 18. At the moment, we have 22, and that's almost 40% of all our clients. Then we've got the percentage of clients who have 1 dependent, the percentage of clients who have 2 dependents, and so on. And we'll just close this section. Now we've got debt. Okay, so at the top we've got the total presenting debt and the total debt in arrears. Here we've got the breakdown of that debt by creditor type. Here we've got, for example, government department or agency, which is 16% of all debt here. And then a finer breakdown, which is MSD with work and income, Ministry of Justice, Housing New Zealand, and we'll likely add IRD to that as well. Utilities, landlord, etc., all of that. And then we've got the breaking down the total debt by loan type. So you've got, for example, home loans, 59% of all debt is to home loans, and $317,000 in total in home loans. You can open more than one of these at a time, but we're just opening one at a time for now. This is staff, the staff section. Number of active staff, 15. The average number of active clients per financial mentor. So this looks at everyone who has financial mentoring permissions and divides the number of clients by the number of active staff who are financial mentors. And then you've got your MSD accountability measures, which are just like the old one in Client Voices. What's important to know is that because of the way Client Voices 1 is built and the way Client Voices 2 is built, the data doesn't migrate perfectly. And so we don't recommend that you run reports based on data entered into Client Voices 1 from Client Voices 2. You'll get incorrect numbers because basically, especially with sessions, there is no way to get an accurate number of total sessions from Client Voices 1. And so we're not really worried too much about it. What you'll need to do instead is, if you want to run reports on those sessions before we close the old one, you're free to go back and access it and run those reports now or until we close it. In the meantime, if you can run reports in Client Voices 2 based on information entered into Client Voices 2. If you want to print this report, you'll see that there's no print button here. All you need to do is click Control P or choose print in your browser. And basically it's styled so that it only prints the most important information, none of this stuff. It'll print the date range and what you've selected here. So if I printed it now, it wouldn't print any of the measures because none of these are open. But if I want to, say, run a report only on client case information, then I can just open this part and print it like that, and it will ignore these ones. If I want to print the whole thing, then you'll need to actually open all of these accordion things. Cool, so that is actually everything in Client Voices. There's not really anything else to it. I can see that there are heaps of questions in the I just noticed, Carolyn, you said Tim Morrison is your husband's cousin. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, so I will answer those questions. Let's see. Actually, there aren't too many. Oh, actually, no, there are too many. I'll answer those questions later. I'll send an email out to all of you with all of the questions and all of the answers. Oh, cool. Thanks. And yeah, that will be it. What you'll get next. So what comes next is, so like I said, answers to your questions will arrive by email. If you have any more questions, don't forget to go to the support content. There's that support button at the bottom of the website. Click on that. There are more than 100 different articles, I'm sure, that'll cover most of what you need to know. If it doesn't answer your question, or if you need to raise a bug or a feature suggestion or something like that, raise a support ticket. That helps us have oversight of the kinds of things that people are asking for and asking about, and it makes it easier for us to prioritize what to work on next. If there's a bug affecting lots of people, yeah, we'll see that. Excellent. And I'll send you hopefully this email with the questions and answers sometime today. Right. Thank you everyone for coming to this. I really, really appreciate it. The session was recorded, so I'll upload that at some stage and I'll communicate that to you when that's done. Mauri ora.